In 2017, a tragic death took place at a drug rehabilitation center in Durban. Desperate to overcome his prescription drug addiction, 26-year-old Canadian Miloš Martinović sought help from Dr Anwar Jeewa, a dentist offering a controversial treatment.
We've done over 2,500 clients already, very, very safely.
Ibogaine, derived from a shrub found in Gabon, it reportedly blocks the symptoms of opiate withdrawal. But there are risks.
They fell so below.
Dr Deborah Mash is an expert in its use.
Ibogaine has a very narrow therapeutic to toxic window.
Jeewa gave Miloš Ibogaine for his opiate addiction, but he allowed him to continue self-medicating with benzodiazepine, a depressant that, among other things, relieves anxiety. 6 hours later, Miloš's heart stopped.
We have done nothing wrong. I've told him I can treat your opiate, but I can't treat your benzo.
He came here because he had an addiction. You leave him with the benzo and he ODs on the benzo while he's on Ibogaine.
Yeah, so?
Yeah,
No. So what is wrong with that, David? Tell me what is wrong with that.
I'll tell you what's wrong. He's dead.
This young man was already at risk for a toxic interaction, and then you're giving more Ibogaine over time. That caused the death.
Dr Jeewa was charged with murder, 4 contraventions of the Medicines and Related Substances Act, and 1 contravention of the Prevention and Treatment of Substance Abuse Act. Miloš's fiancée, 𝗶𝗴𝗶𝗴𝗶, and his father, Mickey, were determined to see Jeewa held accountable.
If he does not see imprisonment, then there's something wrong with the South African law, and something big.
The trial finally got underway in April this year.
It's the first investigation of this nature in the history of South Africa. It was a very complicated investigation and very complicated trial. A lot of research needed to be done about Ibogaine. We also had to wait very long for the toxicology reports.
Marius Boysen is a private investigator employed by Miloš's family.
We often criticize the police, but I can tell you the Hawks had really outdone himself. The investigation was really a marvelous job, and the state's advocate was really, really professional.
Jeewa pleaded guilty to manufacturing, selling, administering, and exporting Ibogaine. He agreed to speak to us via video call.
I was guilty for a few of the supplementary charges and not guilty for 1 or 2, but I've accepted all because this will make the trial go in a much smoother and faster.
He was found guilty of running an unregistered center for which he says the Department of Social Development also bears responsibility.
Because I've been engaging with the department for 15 years, and not once did the department ask me to close down.
Although Jeewa was found not guilty of murder, the court did convict him of culpable homicide.
Look, I was found guilty of negligence. It was not relating to the cause of death, but it was relating to us not having a proper resusc unit in place to revive the patient. And I did accept that, and I do accept the responsibility for that shortcoming. I've proven to the court that the benzodiazepine that allowed him to keep, or the sleeping tablets allowed him to keep, was not contraindicated with the Ibogaine treatment.
The fact that Anwar Jeewa didn't have an emergency plan in place, he didn't plan properly before he started administering the Ibogaine. He didn't ascertain what already the patient had in his system, and that ultimately led to his death. And the court found that he was negligent and responsible for the death. But the judge found that he didn't have the intent to kill.
Jeewa has been sentenced to 3 years correctional supervision and fined 60,000 rand. He must do 25 hours dentistry community service every month.
The sentence has been pretty tough, pretty harsh, but I mean, I do accept it because obviously, the family would be more comfortable if I was incarcerated or, locked up, and I'm willing to take the punishment.
Miloš's family declined to comment, but in a victim impact statement, his fiancée, Brooke, wrote that she's struggling financially, both she and their daughter still traumatized by his loss.
Look, I mean, if I have lost a loved one in similar circumstances, I would also want the individual responsible to have the most harshest sentence possible. And I'm very sorry for all the emotional, psychological, financial difficulties that she is facing. And I sincerely and publicly apologize to the family.
Jeewa says he does intend to continue manufacturing Ibogaine in future, but he will do it legally.
A lot of people have asked me the question, is there a future for Ibogaine? I simply don't know. A lot more research needs to be done. But what I can tell you, Ibogaine in the hands of unqualified individual is dangerous. It kills you. The rehabilitation owners, their staff and medical team needs to understand people that book into their sentence are desperate, but they are responsible for their well-being. And if something goes wrong, they will be held accountable.